Translate to number 6. Yesterday I went to the supermarket, and while I was waiting in line to pay, I suddenly realized I didn't have my purse. It's a horrible feeling. Luckily, I found it a few minutes later in the boot of my car. So here we're speaking from the viewpoint of a woman, and we start out with yesterday, which we know is ayer, and then I went to the supermarket. Well, this is a dot in the past, right? A specific event, so it's going to be fui, and then it will be al supermercado, or just al super, si quieres, if you want. Now this one is like this, right? Because supermercado is a masculine word, but when we have this a plus l, it always gets contracted to al, so that's what's happening there. So we have ayer fui al super. Yesterday I went to the supermarket. And while would be y mientras. Mientras is while. For I was waiting, you could say, well, the verb, first of all, is esperar, right? To wait. Now you could say esperaba because it was waiting, but I think more naturally they would use a tense which we haven't covered yet, but I'll put it in just to show you. It would be estaba esperando. Estaba esperando. But again, that's the tense we haven't covered yet. That's another little gap in our Spanish. So in the that's the one that would sound most natural. It's what they would say as native speakers. But in the meantime, we can get away with saying esperaba. Okay, you'll be perfectly understood with that as well. Now, in line would be, line is cola, so it would be en la cola. While waiting in line, en la cola. And then to pay implies in order to pay, so it would be para, pagar is the verb to pay. I suddenly realized. Okay, so what would happen here is they just say suddenly I realized or suddenly I noticed, right? So suddenly would be de repente. We have de and then repente. De repente is suddenly. For I realized, what you could say is I noticed, and we have the verb notar. There's also another way to say notice, which is darse cuenta, but that's a reflexive verb. In the meantime, we're just going to use this easier option of having noté, because again, it's a dot in the past. At that specific moment, I noticed. So once again, we have the verb notar, to notice, and then that gets transformed into noté for a dot in the past. I noticed. I didn't have. Okay, so the verb here is tener, to have. And this is you know how tener tends to fall into a line in the past, not a dot. So we would have tenía for I didn't have. And then my purse would be mi bolsa. Kind of looks like bag, right? Or reminds you of the word bag. So noté, it should be que, because it's implied in English. Noté que no tenía, I didn't have my bag or my purse, mi bolsa. Now we have it's a horrible feeling with an exclamation mark. So we put an upside down one in Spanish, and this is just the general usage of it is, so es. Now, feeling, what we can say is sensation, sensación. And all these words are feminine words, right? This group of cognates. So, es una sensación horrible. Like that. Luckily is a long word. It's afortunadamente. I found it a few minutes later. This is a dot in the past. So to find is encontrar. And I found as a dot would be encontré. Oops. And I found it, lo encontré. few minutes later, with this use of few, what they say is unos or unas, depending if it's a masculine word or a feminine word. So what we can have here is a few minutes would be unos minutos, like that, because it's a masculine word. So a few, they represent with uno or una, and they make it plural. So we have unos minutos. For example, if we were saying instead a few people or a few persons, right? It would be unas personas, like that. They use unas or unos for a few. Or let's say a few books. Okay, so you have un libro, but a few books would be unos libros, like that. Say a few cars, so it would be, oh no, let's pick something, a feminine word that we've covered. A few houses. So we have una casa is a house, but a few houses would be unas casas. So you can see how they're using this unos or unas to represent a few. In this example, we're using a few minutes. So we have unos minutos. It's very useful piece of information, that, because we use a few in English quite a lot in our everyday conversation. And then later would be más tarde. In the boot of my car. The word for boot, in other words, boot of the car, is maletero. 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 So, en el maletero of my car, de mi carro. And then we have our translation. Ayer fui al súper y mientras esperaba en la cola para pagar, de repente noté que no tenía mi bolsa. Es una sensación horrible. Afortunadamente lo encontré unos minutos más tarde, a few minutes later, en el maletero de mi carro.